And thank you for joining us. I thought it would be best to kind of start with just letting everyone know a little bit more about you and about Equilibrium.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Marni Wandner. I am the VP of Marketing and Business Development at the Syndicate Entertainment Marketing Agency. And I'm also the co-founder of Equilibrium, where we bring wellness resources to the music industry. I became a holistic health coach about 5 or 6 years ago, and I've been in the music industry for about 20 years. So Equilibrium is kind of the crossover of those two things after seeing a need for it.
That's awesome. And there is definitely a need for more organizations like that and more resources around this. So, it's a great segue into the main part. And before we get into sort of sharing some tips for mental health awareness, we wanted to first talk about like why we're having this conversation, why it's important. So I'll set a little bit of context for everyone. And I'm going to read this to make sure that I get this correct. But in 2019, Record Union, which is a digital distribution platform, did a survey with over 1,500 music creators, and this is what they found. They found that 73% of independent music makers suffered from symptoms of mental illness, and that anxiety and depression were the most commonly experienced negative emotions in relation to their music creation. And then even more specifically within that, those who identified between 18 to 25 age range, that percentage climbed to 80%. Now, for me, when I read this, while it wasn't, entirely surprising, it was a little disheartening to see those numbers so high. Were you surprised to hear this, or is this pretty common in what you do?
I wasn't surprised to hear it. I mean, like you said, it was disheartening to hear that confirmation of what we, thought after speaking to people. But no, I mean, I think what we do, both on the artist side and the industry side, it's such an unpredictable industry filled with so many ups and downs, and there's a lot of different factors in it, especially when you're an independent artist. So I think, and the creativity factor, there's a lot going on there. So I think over the years talking to artists, who are whatever, coming to us for even just talking to them for marketing purposes, we always end up talking about mental health. And so, yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons that I started kind of pursuing holistic health coaching, because it's rampant.
Right. And I think we see commonly depression, stress, anxiety. Those are super common things that a lot of us deal with, especially music creators. What's your opinion on the overall perception of talking about mental health in the music industry? I mean, like, why is there a stigma around, having these conversations and openly talking about your mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's getting better, which is good now. But I do think that, there's a fear of judgment, especially for artists, with fans or even band members or team members, being looked at as different, or maybe just maybe looked at as being like weak, or any of the things that we make up that are kind of not true, not how people will perceive us. But I mean, I think we all deal with that. We don't want to be vulnerable, we don't want to kind of talk about what's going on. But the irony in that is that we would totally talk about if we had physical ailments, if we were dealing with
Right.
An illness that was physically manifesting. And this is the same thing, whether it's anxiety or depression, or whether it's just, a mood issue, and it's not, necessarily even a clinical thing, where it's brain health is how I like to refer to it. It's like if you broke your arm, you would go to the doctor, you'd go to the hospital.
Right.
It's the same thing when you're dealing with mental health.
Absolutely. I might be a little slightly naive, although hopeful, thinking that if starting tomorrow, everyone just started talking about this, like about what they're struggling with, that the stigma would go away. I know that's probably not going to happen. I'll keep hoping for that. But what are some other things or other ways that we can do to help rid the stigma in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think talking about it is one of the best ways, because when we're talking about it with our peers, when we're talking about it, with our artists that we work with, so, between artist to artist, industry to artist, industry within the industry, all these different layers of conversation, and kind of just making sure that it's out in the open. You know, sharing about things on social media, but also like one-to-one conversations. You know, it's really, really important to just let people know what you're feeling. Not even if you're not dealing with something presently, you know, bringing up the fact when it makes sense to talk about an experience that you had in the past. Because I think all of us have, you know, dealt with this at one stage of our life or another, if not constantly. So I think kind of sharing what has helped, sharing that we have had these experiences so that people don't feel so alone. But I feel like the most important thing is to just keep talking about it. And I feel like every time I'm kind of like, okay, I think we're good. I think we're there. Like there's always something I'm like, no, we need to still keep having these conversations.
Yeah, for sure. And someone just dropped in the comments too that, you know, when you let it go too, it can also manifest in a physical form. So it's not
For
just something that's
sure.
gonna go away because it's in your head. Like it can affect you
No.
physically, mentally, emotionally, everything. So
Yeah,
I think that's great.
definitely.
And so we definitely wanted to make sure that we shared some tips with everyone today. And these are, you know, for everyone listening, this is just to help you better cope or manage any kind of mental health well-being or just general anxiety around things. So let's start with what you were talking about earlier and my favorite thing, breathing. Marni, like, can you explain why focusing on your breath and something so simple, something we do every single day, why that's so important to your mental health?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is so simple. And we think about like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to learn how to breathe, you know, but the great thing about breathing is it's with us all the time. It's free. And you can do it without any, you know, special equipment or being in any specific place or, you know, kind of any special training really. So, I mean, the most important thing when you do practice any kind of breath work is to make sure that when you're breathing deep into your belly. And that you're not breathing shallow into your chest, which a lot of us do throughout the day, which is why sometimes even just taking one deep breath consciously can really, you know, turn your day around, even just give you energy. But the reason that you know, it has a health impact, an impact on our well-being, is that when we take a deep breath, especially when we exhale for longer than we inhale, we are activating our parasympathetic nervous system, and that you know, part of our nervous system, there's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The parasympathetic is the one that calms us down. The sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight. And that's when we're like, we're ready. Like, are we going to run? Are we going to fight? Like, what's going to happen? How are we going to fight off that tiger? Or, more normally these days, it's like an aggressive email or something that sets us off, or a phone call. And we really need to be careful to keep ourselves out of that state of fight or flight when it's not necessary. And breathing, deep breathing, conscious breathing really does calm us down naturally.
Right. And we had written out and we wanted to talk about a certain breathing exercise. You want to explain the 4-7-8 method? I
Yes.
absolutely love this. I do this every day. I did it before I jumped on here.
Yay.
So can you explain it a little bit?
I know this is both of our favorites and it's so exciting. So yeah, I'm just going to show you guys how to do it. And I know that since this is this will be on replay so everyone can do it with us. And this is also one of the exercises, maybe a few times that we've done on our reset series on our IGTV at This is Equilibrium. So you can always go back to it there. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to take the tip of your tongue and touch it to the top of the roof of your mouth behind your two front teeth like this. And keep it there the whole time. Make sure to relax your face anytime you're doing any kind of exercise, any exercise at all, but any breathing exercise for sure, and make sure your shoulders are relaxed. And then you're going to breathe in through your nose for 4 counts. Sorry, there's a little bit of noise from outside. In through your nose for 4 counts. And then you're going to hold it for 7 counts. And then you're going to breathe out through your mouth forcefully for 8 counts like this. So sort of like you can do it however you want, kind of like a forceful
Whatever
exhale.
feels good.
Whatever feels good. You can even put sound on it. So basically it's going to look like this if you want to do it with me, and I'll just kind of hold my hands up here. So in, and that's it.
Lovely. I
And you
love
could do
that.
that 3 or 4 rounds. Definitely good to be sitting or laying down when you do this, especially at the beginning, because you can get a little lightheaded, but
Yeah, I mean, my favorite
it's
thing
great.
is, like you were saying, you can do this anywhere. You can do it as many times. You can return to it whenever you need to. It can be because you just forgot to breathe, which happens to me all the time. Or, if you're feeling a little bit anxious about something, you just do it until and it makes you focus on your breathing, and takes away the focus from what's giving you anxiety or stress. And I think that's why it's just such a great exercise.
Yeah, it really does kind of, you're right. Like it kind of pulls the focus because you do have the counting and the focus, you have to concentrate on it. Even if it
Right.
is for just a few seconds. If you do a few rounds of it, that's why it's even better to just kind of get yourself into that zone. But it is really nice. You kind of have to not think about anything else for a few minutes, or at least I do. I can't count
Yeah,
and think about anything else at the same time.
same. Okay, so the next one, which I think probably a lot of people struggle with. I definitely struggle with this because my job, requires me to be on the computer, on my phone, and on social media, which is mindful media exposure. So why is it important for us to be more mindful about our media exposure?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially now these days and in the past year or so, we're just out of control with the media that we're consuming, whether it be from the news or from social media. And we underestimate the impact that that has on our mental well-being, and our physical well-being too, because it's all connected. So, we really have to be conscious of what we're consuming, how we're consuming, and really most importantly, why we're consuming. If you're on Instagram scrolling, you got to think about why am I doing this? What's in me that's telling me that I need to be doing this when I could be doing something else, whether it's creating something, whether it's, a self-care practice. Scrolling through Instagram is like the opposite of self-care,
Yeah.
even though it feels relaxing.
It's so
um,
easy, but you're
so
being
easy.
just kind of, you have so much stimuli coming in. You're thinking about so many things. It's very hard to process. And then,
Yeah,
there's this whole societal thing that comes in, pressure to,
100%.
oh, am I missing out on something? I'm not doing what these people are doing, and forgetting that, you're just seeing one part of these people's lives too.
Yeah.
It's not all that it looks to be.
It's not. And it's so easy to forget that, even though you do the same thing for your own
Yeah.
feed or whatever. But yeah, it really is important to keep that in mind. Scrolling first thing in the morning should not be part of our morning routine, which I know we're going to talk about in a bit. But yeah, it's something you can just kind of, it's just a thing that we fall into, and all of a sudden we're in it. And I think just becoming conscious of it is really the first step in coming away from that a little bit and just going, oh, I'm doing it,
Yep.
and we all do it. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's, even one of the things that I do is I move the apps around on my phone. I run a division at the company. We do social media for our clients. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's literally part of my job as well. And I will literally move around the apps, especially the apps that I'm on most, so that it's a little bit harder for me to find them. I will still search for them, and I get fast at it, but it just helps that much more so that you're not just kind of going to it. And then with the news, just really monitor what you're taking in.
Yeah.
You wouldn't watch, well, maybe you would watch a horror movie every minute of every day. I'm not a horror movie fan. Some people are, but you kind of have to think about, like, what is this doing to my cortisol levels? What is intaking this information? Or can I intake this information in a way that doesn't freak me out? Can I
Right.
just take it in? Matter of fact, if I cannot, then maybe I don't need to be consuming this at the
Right.
volume that I'm consuming it.
And I think there's some really easy ways to try and reduce this too. There's not only apps and websites now that, will block you from your social media after a certain amount of time. But even, maybe put your phone away an hour before bed and you don't check it. Or maybe, again, like you said, it's not the first thing that you look at in the morning. Even these small things really help to sort of reduce that, and make yourself a little bit more mindful that, like, how much you're on your phone, how much you're on your computer, how much you're in front of a screen.
Yeah.
I think also when you're feeling anxious, just maybe remove yourself, like go outside, go for a walk, get some
Don't take
fresh
your phone.
air. Don't take your phone. Like, novel idea, right?
Yeah. It's terrifying to me too. I make myself do it sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, so this next tip, this is like super central to my life, but this is creating routines. And I think this is sometimes also kind of, it may feel contradictory. Like sometimes when you plan things and they don't go the way you want them to, that can give you anxiety. So how and why are routines actually so important for your wellness?
Yeah, I mean, they set a template for us. And I think the big thing with setting a routine is exactly what you just said, is to not be too rigid about it, to set a flexible routine of like, here's a general outline of what I want to do each day, and not hold yourself. I mean, you obviously want to like, try to do the thing. That's the point of the routine, but do it because you know it feels good and that you're doing it for you. If it feels like work, then maybe you need a different routine. If it feels
Or
like a
less.
slog or less things. Yeah, a lot of people
Yeah.
go like, I always think it's funny when people, are talking about a certain practice or whatever. And like, you just need 5 minutes a day, just 5 minutes a day. And I was like, if I did all the things that only took 5 minutes a day, that would be my whole day. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
have time to have a job. So you kind of do have to pick and choose the things that A, make an impact for you, could be
Mm-hmm.
totally different than what works for me or someone else. And also what you enjoy doing. So what works and what do you like doing? I like Dr. Rangan Chatterjee has a really great, he's awesome. He has some really great books and stuff, but he has a saying where he talks about the 3 M's of his morning routine, and it's mindfulness, movement, and mindset. And I just
I
really
love
like
that.
that because it makes an easy, you know,
Yeah.
easy rundown of things you can do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also don't beat yourself up when you don't, get to that routine that day. If you try to do 10 minutes of yoga every morning and one morning you don't get to it, that's okay. Sometimes just being like, I wasn't able to do that, but I'm going to do it tomorrow morning is just as good as actually being able to do it, or making time to do it if you actually don't have the time. You don't want to be, it shouldn't be stressful. It shouldn't be like, oh
Yeah.
man, I didn't do my yoga this morning. Like I got to get it in today. It should be more like, okay, well, today was a little bit different. Tomorrow
Yeah.
is a new day. I'm going to take it from there
And a
for sure.
routine can be any time of day too. It is really great to have a morning routine because I really believe that like how we start our day sets the pace and sets the tone for our day. But if you are not a morning person and you want to have a late in the afternoon routine or something like that, or if you miss your morning routine and you want to do it later on, whatever works for you, but
Yeah.
keeping that flexibility. I think specifically with artists, not having, a lot of artists don't have a regular schedule with work. This
Right.
is where routine can come in really, handy, is to just say, okay, well, I might be in the studio, I might be on the road, I might have a late night, I might do all these things, but I know that when I wake up, whenever that is, these are the 3 things that I need to do. And that can
Yeah.
just kind of put an anchor in your day.
For sure. And then our next and last tip is about sleep, which also includes routine. So you want to go over a little bit why sleep is, I mean, we know everybody's heard this at some point in their life. Get
Yeah.
your 8 hours. Sleep is so important. But why is it actually really important for our mental well-being?
Totally. And first of all, not everybody needs 8 hours. Some people have an ideal sleep, 6 hours might be, good for them. I would say, more isn't always better, but if you're functioning on like 4 hours of sleep a night, it's probably not great. But sleep is a time for our body to repair itself. I mean, literally reset itself. And if we don't get enough sleep, or if we don't get good enough quality sleep, like alcohol makes us feel sleepy, it gives us terrible sleep because we never quite
Yeah.
get into deep sleep. So if we don't get good quality sleep on a regular basis, we start seeing things like increased cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And that really puts us into that fight or flight that I was talking about earlier. And it increases our heart rate, it increases our blood pressure. And when we are functioning at that level of stress chronically or, unnecessarily, then we can start experiencing things like fatigue, anxiety, depression, and like a whole list of physical symptoms as well. So it's super important.
Yeah. And what are some tips that people can do to maybe establish like a really good sleep routine?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, having a routine in the morning is great. Having a routine in the evening is great when you want to go to sleep. I really think starting, like setting it at when do I want to be sleeping, and then
Mm-hmm.
working backwards from there. So if I want to be sleeping at 11 o'clock, then let me look at 10 o'clock and see what can I do at that point to start winding myself down.
Yeah.
There's obviously, I know somebody put melatonin, there are obviously tons of supplements and things that you can take. Melatonin is great for your circadian rhythms and getting your body in sync, especially if you travel a lot, and if you're
Right.
jet lagged. But I mean, even just on a regular basis, doing things like an hour before, put your phone down, put your
Yep.
screens away, or at least use blue light blocking glasses, or put your phone on night mode, or do both, which is what I do.
Yeah.
I don't sleep in the same room with my phone. That sometimes gives people anxiety, but at least put it on silent or something if you're going to sleep in the same room with it, so that it's not, saying, look
Yeah.
at me, look at me. But that blue light, taking that blue light away from you an hour before you sleep, or even a couple hours before you sleep, if you can, is super helpful, because it stops feeding our brain the blue light that says stay awake.
Yeah.
And there's obviously, like, getting your room set up, so getting the place that you're going to be sleeping about an hour before set for how you want it when you're going to be sleeping. Make sure it's dark, make sure it's cool, the temperature is right, that it's quiet, and start kind of creating a little zone for you, kind of the way you would if you were like putting a baby to sleep.
Yeah.
Do that for yourself.
Yeah. Low light is always, important to me. My bedroom is like sort of like a safe haven. I want it to be super cozy, and I want to feel like, I'm being wrapped in a big blanket essentially. And so, like, setting up your scene, I think that's like so important. There's also so many other, again, there's apps, I have on my phone, it alerts me at like 10:30 that, hey, you need to start winding down,
Yeah.
because you want to go to bed by like 11:30. So here, you need to start winding down. And it sort of reminds me. So you can set yourself reminders, or, you
Mm-hmm.
just start to say, okay, hey, it got dark, so I'm going to start slowly doing things a little bit slower than I would be doing. I wouldn't be, watching TV so late, or anything like that. I mean,
Right.
I think there's a common theme here, is that it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be super simple, and sometimes less is more. And just
Definitely.
doing what feels good to you, for sure.
Yeah, and this is where the breathing can come in too. Doing some deep breathing at night, especially like doing a little bit, 45 minutes to an hour before you go to sleep, and then really, like, when you're in bed, like, I like to do some deep breathing when I'm in bed. And just, anything that calms you down. We're all different. If it's like a nice soothing tea, that's good too.
Yeah,
But yeah, anything that works for you, that just kind of takes it down a notch, and just remove all those stressors. Because
for
once
sure.
they get to us, that's when we're like, oh, now I have to de-stress all over again.
Oh, yeah, of course. So we definitely had other tips that we wanted to share with you guys, but I want to make sure that we also answer some questions. So anything that we didn't talk about, we're going to share all these with everyone when we post this. So let's answer a few questions. We had a few. We had one. One was, what can creatives from Africa who experience anxiety from lack of resources and opportunities do to be mentally healthy?
It's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, I think a lack of resources in itself can be stressful, and can obviously affect our mental health a ton. I mean, I think that doing things that don't create more stress, when possible, is just always the kind of foundation. So things that don't put additional stress on the resources that are not there. This is why I love breathing so much, because it's just with us all the time, and we can do it without having to acquire anything. So stuff like that. I think also journaling and things like that are really great, because we can process our thoughts by ourselves. It's really kind of incredible how effective writing out what we're feeling on a regular basis can be.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you'll just solve a problem, and you didn't even realize that you had it in you just by writing. And sometimes when I'm like, I should write, I have some quiet time, I'm going to take advantage of this and write. I don't even know what I'm going to write, but starting to do that, and kind of just letting the thoughts flow sometimes, is a really effective way to do that.
Yeah, it quiets the mind, and then hopefully you're not experiencing that when you're sleeping in your dreams, which can also kind of
Right.
keep you awake, or like make you wake up in the middle of the night. Yeah, that's for sure. And to that point of like sleeping and all that, we had someone mention here that, an obstacle they usually have is, as a live performer, when you have a performance, the having to wind down and actually,
Yes.
convince yourself to go to sleep. I mean, what could be do you have any tips for live performers on, some good things to kind of help them wind down?
Definitely. I mean, I think, any of the exercises or meditations that, like, we have a bunch on our Instagram, but just any that you find online are great. But last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I can't remember time at this point, but we did a really great workshop on Jinshin Jitsu, which is an incredible healing art. And we'll be posting it soon on our Instagram and our YouTube. But basically, there's a ton of really great self-healing, self-calming exercises. Not even exercises. One of them is called the Big Hug. that I'll show you guys. Basically, I don't know if you can see, I'm going to tilt down a little so you can see me. Hopefully my phone won't fall over, but you basically take your hands like this. I kind of call it the superstar because it reminds me of the, yes. Or no, it's not superstar. It's the same actress. No, it's not even the same actress. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I don't know why I call it that. It doesn't make any sense. It's the one where she sticks her hands under her. Yeah, so it's Molly Shannon. So I'll call it the Molly Shannon. You basically put your hands underneath the sides of your body like this. It's called the big hug. And you know, obviously some deep breathing is effective here, but these two energy points are really effective for calming down the body. So sometimes if I am amped up and I can't calm down, I'll do this. And it feels nice. It's a hug. And I will do this if I can't sleep as well.
Do you keep it there for a certain amount of time or just until you've kind of calmed down?
I kind of do, yeah, kind of until I feel like I'm good. Like sometimes I don't think I've ever fallen asleep in that position, but sometimes I'll just be like, okay, now, you know, when you're reading, you're like, okay, now I'm ready for sleep.
Yeah,
That's
for
kind
sure.
of how long I keep it.
Okay, so last question here, unless anybody else wants to throw them in the chat. What do you advise when I am anxious, especially if I don't know what caused it?
That's a great question. And a lot of times we don't know what caused it. So that's why, you know, having this toolkit of things that we know calm us down, even if we don't know what the stimulus was, is great, because it doesn't really matter. Your body doesn't really care what the stimulus was or the thing that caused it. All it knows is I have to fight right now or I have to run away. And so getting yourself out of that place is really the first thing. And then you can kind of go back and go, okay, what was that? Then you can sort of analyze, but it's really almost impossible when you're in that state to figure out, if you don't obviously know, what was it that caused this anxiety. And sometimes it's not one thing. Sometimes it's an accumulation of one thing. Sometimes it's or accumulation of a few things. And sometimes it could be just something in the back of our head that we're not quite sure about. You know, like I said, uncertainty can create anxiety. So really kind of practicing these things on a regular basis, even preventatively, is a really great way to just keep the anxiety quelled, you know, so that, you know, it doesn't kind of creep up on us, which it will. So that's why kind of just having I sort of use them dually. So I use them, you know, in a moment of crisis when I need to calm down, and then in like preventatively on an ongoing way, so that I know that when I am anxious, because it's a when, not an if, that I know that, you know, maybe it won't be as bad, or that I'm actively trying to kind of keep myself out of that state.
Yeah, that's great. And I actually do have one more question. And someone had kind of mentioned this earlier in the chat, and I wanted to make sure that we talked about it because we didn't specifically talk about reaching out and finding someone to talk to about your mental health. So do you have any advice for someone who maybe this is totally new to them, but they do want to work on it? What's a good way about going about finding a good support system to talk to either someone in your like friends or family, or an actual professional to help, you know, you figure out your mental well-being?
Yeah, I mean, I think with friends and family, that, you know, having a support system is such an important thing, first of all. And then how do you get that support system really is kind of making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the people that are, you know, good vibes, you know, like that they're not toxic people. You know, you can sort of start gauging, how do I feel when I'm with this person, or when I'm talking about with, you know, is this the feeling that I'm looking for, and kind of weed out who you're associating with. And if you have family members or friends that, you know, push your buttons, you know, maybe take a break if you can, and really focus on being with the people that make you feel safe. And then start there by talking to them about this, you know, express, hey, I'm feeling this. Is this something that you've got experience with? Have you ever felt like this before? Because I'm always amazed that, you know, the amount of times that people will be like, I'm feeling this. Is this weird? And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I've felt like that my entire life. You know, just take it for granted. But then, you know, also getting professional help is sometimes really, really important. You know, certainly therapy is amazing, and there's a whole host of other things that you could do as well to work with different practitioners. But being that we're in the music industry, Backline is an incredible organization. You can find them at backline.care online. And you can, you know, work with a therapist that understands what it's like to work in music. I can't recommend them enough. And it's free.
And I think it's also good when you're thinking about that, if you do want professional help, keep in mind that you want to look for someone that you're going to be comfortable talking to. So think about things like location. Do you want to talk to them virtually or in person? Are they, gender? Gender is super important. Do you want to talk to a man or do you want to talk to a woman? Who are you going to be most comfortable talking to about this? Because it's just a unbiased third party who's going to help you kind of figure out maybe why or where your anxiety is coming from. They're definitely not there to judge you. So you want to make sure you're super comfortable when you're going to be, sharing all this. So keeping those things in mind, I think, are very important as well.
And a note too that sometimes, very often, it will take a while to find the right therapist, and that's okay. It's like dating. It don't feel like you have to work with someone if they're not the right fit. You can break up with your therapist and find another one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Marni, for talking to us today. And I hope everyone got like at least a good tip to help them with something the next time that they're struggling. Please, 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 everybody go and follow Equilibrium and then come back and save this IG Live later so that next time you feel like you're struggling, you don't know where to start, you can come back here and re-listen, maybe do the breathing exercise with us again, and just have a starting point. Anything else that you want to add, Marni, before we leave?
No, I just want to thank everyone so much for joining us, and thank you, Songtrust and Chantel, for doing this, and for making this a topic of discussion, because this is how we're gonna make some changes.
Yes, exactly. And I just want to reiterate that I just want everyone to remember that you're not alone. All of us are going through this. This is not something that's, special or new, that's only to you. We're all going through it and we're all struggling. So if you are currently struggling with depression, anxiety, or any other mental health illness or issues, or you have a friend, we hear you, we see you, and you're not alone. There are tons of resources available for you. We're going to be posting a bunch of them. Make sure to check in on your friends, even the ones that seem like they're okay. Send them these resources if you think they need them. And just remember that, this work is for all of us, that we're not going to get better unless we continue to have these conversations. So share this with your friends and make sure that, you're having the conversation. That's all that really matters, and take care of yourself. Thanks.